Imagine walking into a store in the 1850s with a $10 bill in your pocket. You hand it to the cashier. He looks at it, flips it over, and says, "I don't take this bank's money. It's only worth $7 here." You didn't spend a dollar. You just lost 30% of your money by walking 3 towns over. And this wasn't a scam. This was just normal life in America. For almost 25 years, there was no single American dollar. There were over 8,000 different types of paper money floating around, printed by more than 1,600 different banks. Nobody could agree on what any of it was actually worth. Let's talk about how that happened. Back in 1837, the US didn't have a central bank. Andrew Jackson had shut the last one down because he thought it gave too much power to a small group of rich elites. So control over money went to the states instead. And that year, Michigan passed a law that changed everything. It was called free banking. Basically, anyone could open a bank and print their own paper money. You didn't need approval from the government in Washington. You just needed some bonds as backup, a printing press, and a name for your bank. Other states copied the idea fast, and Americans did exactly what you'd expect. Banks popped up everywhere. Some were real, solid, legitimate businesses. But a lot of them were built to fail on purpose. These sketchy ones got a nickname, wildcat banks. The story goes that many of them were built in places so remote, a wildcat had a better chance of reaching the bank than an actual customer trying to get their money back. Here's how the trick worked. A few guys would open a bank, print a huge pile of nice-looking paper money, use that paper to buy government bonds as collateral, and then start lending the paper out to real people for real land and real goods. As long as nobody actually walked in and asked to trade their paper for real gold or silver, everything looked fine. But the second enough people got suspicious and rushed in to cash out, the bank didn't have anywhere near enough real money to cover it. They'd shut the doors, and the paper in your pocket became worthless, just like that. By the 1850s, this had turned into full chaos. There wasn't $1. There were thousands of different dollars, and each one was only as trustworthy as the bank that printed it. Shop owners had to carry around thick books called banknote reporters. Basically, price guides that told you how much any bank's money was worth that specific week. A note from a big, well-known bank in New York might be worth its full value. A note from some random bank 2 states over might only be worth 60 cents on the dollar. And a note from a bank that had already collapsed? Worth nothing. Good for lighting a fire, that's about it. On top of that, counterfeiting exploded, because with thousands of different designs floating around, almost nobody could actually tell real money from fake. People genuinely couldn't trust the cash in their own wallet. The whole system finally broke during the Civil War. The government needed a reliable way to fund the war, and having thousands of competing, unstable currencies made that basically impossible. So in 1863 and 1864, Congress passed the National Banking Acts, which created federally regulated banks and, eventually, one single standardized US dollar. It took the country nearly falling apart to force everyone back onto the same page. Now here's the part that makes this story worth telling today. We're kind of watching the same pattern happen again, just in a different form. Right now, there isn't one single digital dollar. There are hundreds of different stablecoins, cryptocurrencies that claim to be backed by, or equal to, the US dollar, issued by hundreds of different private companies. Some of them are actually backed one-to-one by real cash sitting in a bank. Some are backed by other riskier assets. And a few have already collapsed to zero overnight, wiping out huge amounts of money for the people holding them. The exact same way a wildcat bank's paper could turn worthless overnight in 1850. And just like back then, most regular people holding these coins have no real way to check which ones actually have the reserves they claim to have. It's kind of a wild thing to sit with. The tools changed completely. Paper notes turned into lines of code, but the underlying idea is basically identical. Whenever you let a lot of different private groups issue their own version of money without much oversight, you get a rush of convenience and new options at first, and then eventually. Some of them turn out to be built on nothing. History doesn't repeat exactly, but this one rhymes pretty hard. So next time you hear about a stablecoin that promises to always equal $1, or some new crypto token marketed as being just as safe as cash, it's worth remembering this isn't actually a new problem. America already ran this exact experiment once, with paper instead of code, and it took over 2 decades of chaos to fix it. What do you think? Does knowing this history change how you'd look at crypto today? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked this one, there's a lot more weird financial history where this came from.